It's been a while since I've done a card making video, and I was just cleaning out my supplies, and I usually keep sort of my Kaszazz papers together in a Ziploc bag, and I came across one that I was sort of cleaning up and found these little bits of scraps in the bag, and so I thought I'd challenge myself to use up some of those scraps and make a few cards. So I thought I'd share the card making with you because I've been doing a lot of scrapbooking lately. And so I've literally just got a couple of bits and pieces from the paper collection, and I've pulled out a couple of supplies that I thought would go well with it. Now, the other thing that I'm trying to do in the interest of using up my scraps and not, opening new supplies and things like that is to keep the rest of the supplies that I've pulled out to a minimum. So I'll just show you what I've grabbed. So this is the Esprit Vivine stamp set from Kaszazz, which is really versatile, so I thought that that would be a good stamp set to use. And also the mini messages greetings uncut, so there's 4 greetings that you get with that, and I thought that those greetings with that stamp set would be enough. I've limited myself to 2 inks, so I've pulled out the Vintage Photo Distress ink and Cornflower Blue Archival ink. I've got 1 circle punch, which is the medium punch, and 1 washi tape that I thought would go well with these papers. And then I've just got some white cardstock, so I'm not going to dip in and grab any other supplies, and of course my adhesives over here. So what I'm going to do is see how I go pulling together. The aim is to get 3 cards made, so we'll see how we go pulling those together. And I am using my paper trimmer, but if you don't have a paper trimmer, you can just use a pair of scissors, but I am not very good at cutting straight. So what I want to do is think about the papers that I'm going to use and how I'm going to use them. And at the moment I'm seeing this strip here as a way of stamping my greetings onto these, and so they'll be the sort of similar things that happen on the card. And then also I quite like these and the little camera that I might cut apart. So they're the sort of things that I might that caught my eye to start with. And then on the other pieces of paper, I've got this strip here. I don't particularly like the back, and I'm not sure that it goes well with the cards I'm sort of thinking of making, so I'm definitely going to use that side if I use any. These ones I'm not sure how I'm going to use or if I'll use them at all. And then this strip here, I quite like both sides, so I'll keep an eye on that. And I like this sort of pattern in the middle here. I also like the back bit, so we'll just cut that strip off to start with because I know I want to use that, and then we'll decide from there where to go. So basically the idea is that I want to get rid of all of the papers that are sitting in pieces in this Ziploc bag, and so whatever I don't use on these 3 cards I'll probably throw out now. So I'm actually just going to trim these with the scissors. And you could trim them down a little bit further if you wanted to, but I quite like the yellow border. I may trim the yellow off a little bit more. Okay, so it's a matter now of deciding what I'm going to do with these ones. So I might just pop those to the side for a moment while I start thinking about the first card. The other thing I'm going to do is I will fussy cut this camera out, but at the moment I just want the words. And I'm thinking with these smile words that I'm actually going to cut a banner for these on one end. So just trimming down the middle, and then so that's my banner there. And the same one with this side, it will be a little bit shorter because there wasn't as much space on that side, but turning that into a banner there. So I've got those. I'll get my little scissors out just to trim around this camera. I do use a pair of nail scissors for my fussy cutting. I find that works a lot more precisely, and these ones actually have a curve on it, which means that when you're cutting around corners and things, it's quite easy to do. I find that the curved edge just really helps get around those little tiny corners. So just trimming that down. And that will be my little camera embellishment. Okay, keep things neat. Alright, I'm going to start with my first card. So I've just got a piece of plain white cardstock. All I did when I was pulling out my cardstock is I've grabbed myself 3 card bases, and I had these little bits that were left over that were cut up, so I thought I'd pull them out. If I use them, I use them, and if I don't, I don't. And so just going to fold that over. I've got a bone scorer here, but you don't have to use one. I didn't use one for a long time. Even after I bought it, I tended not to use it, but now just to get that nice crisp edge, I do tend to use it. Okay, so it's a matter now of deciding how this card is going to come together. And the thing I think I'm going to do first is just put a bit of stamping on the background. So one of the things I like about this Esprit Vivine set is that it's got some really nice background sort of stamps that you can use. So I got myself some scrap paper here, because what I'm going to do is like a shadow sort of stamping, or double stamping I think they call it, where you actually have quite a faint stamp. So you ink up the stamp quite generously, and then what you do is have your scrap piece of paper and just going to remove some of that ink, and then what you're left with is a much lighter stamp, so very faded look. And I'm going to do the same with this third stamp, so, and the same colour, generous amount of ink. Then you don't press too firmly on this scrap piece of paper, just enough to get some of that ink off, and then we're just going to send it right off the edge, like so. Okay, so that's the sort of base of our card. Now what I think I'm going to do is, just to get an idea of what I want it to look like, I'm going to ink the edge. So I've got the Distress ink in a vintage photo. If you didn't have Distress ink, or if you didn't have an applicator tool, you could just use sponge and whatever brown ink or whatever colour you choose ink. With a kitchen sponge, just chop a little bit of it off and dip it into the ink and ink the edges, but just to soften the edges a little bit. So just so I can get an idea of how it's going to look, I'll do that to start with. And then I think I'm going to start with this piece. So I quite like the knot in the wood there, so I'm going to just mark up roughly where I want it to be. Actually, I probably should do it with my trimmer. So if the card is just under 15, then I probably want this piece to be about 11 centimetres. So that's right to the edge of the trimmer. I want to include the knot in that wood pattern. Well, I'm going to have to go over 11 and then just come back and trim the other edge, because I really want to include that knot in the wood. At this stage I won't throw that out, but I probably will. Probably won't use that. Okay, so I'm going to adhere that, but again, before I do, I'm just going to ink the edges. It just gives it that soft appearance. And the other thing I might do is, with that text, I'm going to repeat this across that piece of paper, just because I think that the wood grain is a little bit plain in the background. So I'm just going to grab my spare piece of paper again, the same technique that I used before, just ink up the whole stamp, stamp off the layer, and then you can see that just adds that little bit of interest to the background. Okay, so we're going to include that there, and it's kind of a repeat of that pattern there. So my double-sided tape, whatever adhesive you've got. If you don't have double-sided tape, you can use a acid-free glue, or I find glue sticks tend to be a bit wet and can warp the paper, which is why I like to use the double-sided tape. and you can, you know, pick it up. It's very inexpensive, and doesn't warp the paper as much as a glue stick or something like that. But if you didn't have it, you could definitely use a glue stick. Okay, so we just want that bird to be peeking out from the top there, and so adhere that down like so. Okay, so we know we definitely want to use this piece there, and we're going to decide what comes up here. And I think what I'm going to go with is some of those flowers from our stamp set. So these ones here in that cornflower blue. So we'll get some scrap piece of white cardstock here and ink this up. This time we won't do the double stamping, we want it to be quite a clear, crisp picture. And fit two onto there. And we might do a couple more because I think I'll use at least a few more of those on the other cards. So we'll stamp them out while we're going. And that's the beauty of making a few cards in a row, is that you can do a bit of batch stamping and makes things go a bit quicker. It's a beautiful colour, that cornflower blue. It's a really soft blue, but quite, you know, not pastel-y as such, so just a very soft colour. So I'll start with 6. We can always go back and do some more if we want, and we'll need to cut those out. So I think we might do our stamping on this one as well, and I'm going to, I think I'll put best wishes on this one. So I've got another block over here. Okay, and I think we'll do this in the cornflower blue as well. Just ink that up well. And hopefully I get it fairly close to the middle. That will do me. Just wondering whether I trim it down a little bit. And deciding what layers are going to go with that. Okay, we haven't used our washi yet. I'm wondering whether I use some washi at the there, and I think I will just trim it down just slightly so that the sides of the card are peeking through. And you see the washi underneath, and then I'm going to do similar kind of layer on this side. Trimming that off like so, and then we might add that over the top. And I think I'll give that some dimension. So I've got my magic mount here. And because there's a fairly big piece, I'm going to use quite a few pieces of these. You could use it in a big strip, or you could use it in the squares like I'm going to do. So generally what I'll do, a piece this size, I'll probably put 8 squares on, so 1 in each corner, so it doesn't sag at all. And then I did cut 8, I think one of them flew off the table. In the middle, on the top and the bottom, and then just in between to make sure there's no sagging in the middle at all. That didn't come off properly. Okay, so peel these off. One of the things I would say is it's worth investing in some dimensional adhesive. You can pick up, you know, the Kaszazz one is quite cheap and it's great because you can cut it to the size you want, but you can pick up cheap ones from local $2 stores and things like that if you don't order from Kaszazz. Okay, so we've got our best wishes there, and what I'm going to do is go back to those little scissors that I had and just start trimming out these flowers. And just, you don't have to be precise about this, it's just working your way around, and the trick to trimming finer details is to move the paper rather than move the actual scissors. So the scissors stay straight and you just wriggle the paper all the way around like so. So because these flowers are very one-dimensional, I'll show you a couple of tricks to try and give them a bit more texture and make them look like they're coming off the page a little bit more. There's a couple of ways you can do it. Obviously one is first of all using the dimensional adhesive, so the magic mount or something similar, but the other way is to curl the paper as well, so I'll show you that. You can do this with any sort of flat blunt tool, so maybe a butter knife, or if you wanted to use a skewer and roll it on a skewer or something like that, but of course because I've got the bone folder I will just use my bone folder and just trim around the edge there. There we go, and just curling the edges that way will help it lift off the page. So you can do that like so. You could cut out the middle and layer it on top with dimension, which would give it another sort of layer, or you could go the other way and actually trim down the petals and then curl them up. But I'm just going to do it this way today, and I'm going to go back in with the vintage photo, and because it's got it's already got ink on the sponge, I don't need to go back in and ink it, and just ink the edges, and that will help give it a bit more dimension as well, creates a bit of a shadow effect, and it tricks the eye into thinking that actually there is more dimension going on than what's actually on the page. And you could do it without curling, so you know, you could definitely ink the edges and not curl. And so what I'm going to do now is flip this over, and I'm just going to put one fairly sizable square in the middle of each of these flowers. I do need another strip. So this is what I mean by being able to cut it to size. You can cut that strip as thick or as thin as you like. And I just noticed I'm making a fair bit of mess here as I go. Oh. The beauty with the magic mount is it does stick really well, so if you accidentally stick it down in the wrong spot, it will rip your cardboard. But the cardboard I'm using, or the cardstock I'm using, is quite a thick one, so because that's on the back that won't matter too much. Okay, so we're just going to figure out how we layer these now, and I think, do we go 1, 2, 3 perhaps? Yep, like so. I'm happy with that. Now a couple of things that you could do if you wanted to, you could add some pearls to the middle, and I think that's what I'm going to do just to give it that last little finishing touch. There's plenty of products out there that you can use, like bling, or you know, the liquid pearls and things like that. But I'm just going to add some of these pearls. And the beauty of these pearls is you can kind of say, okay, what size am I going to add to the middle? And I think these ones will do justice with just those little pearls there. Okay, and that's card number 1, all done. Plus, I'm ready to start on others. So in the interest of time, I'm going to finish this video here, and I'll actually start a new one, making the next card. Thanks for watching.